Yeah, I know.
And
All right.
Then
115
115 is
again,
2
108.
Edmonds Court.
All right, I will convene our meeting, and I see everyone's busily at work, but I'll ask your indulgence. This is the September 8th meeting of the Public Safety Committee, Safety Building Committee, I should say, and I'll read, as I have every other meeting, our mission statement,
And then it's 46 Highland.
which is to develop a plan for the Plymouth Fire Department and Police Department that will provide them with adequate facilities to meet their present and future requirements. This includes site selection, building concept, engineer, architect liaison, and preparation of draft warrant articles for consideration by the voters at town meeting in 2011, with select board approval and scheduled public hearings and informational meetings as needed and required by law. I am Tim Keefe, and I have the pleasure of chairing this illustrious group.
17.
And I will call us to order again. And I know you're all busy trying to finish up
We're trying to-
details.
Fix something up for you, sorry.
I appreciate that. So our first agenda item is approval of the minutes, and we do have some draft minutes that no one has seen yet, I don't believe. At least I didn't. Is this the first time we've seen them?
I
Okay.
passed them out here.
Thank you. All right, so why don't I give everybody just a couple of minutes to review these, and we can act on them tonight.
While we're doing that, do you know if Chief Clausen is the September one?
I have not heard that he's not going to be, but I'm not certain. We have the attached warrant articles from last year. Thank you, Mary, and we do not need to approve those. Those were last year, so they're not on our approval roster for this evening.
Did you bring an extra agenda?
I printed a whole bunch of extras, yep.
Could I?
Sure.
I need to start taking notes.
Do I hear any changes, additions, deletions, edits that people would like to see fit to make? Yes, Ray.
On the first page in the title, should read the Town of Plymouth Public Safety Building Committee.
Thank you.
So I'll just change that on all of the minutes that we've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other changes, edits? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 1st?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Any abstentions? Approved unanimously. Thank you. As we have been doing in the past, I've shrunk I've condensed and moved around our list a little bit, but it's still essentially our same list. And welcome back. I hope you had a good vacation.
It was very good.
We talked about you a lot while you were gone, so if you watch the videos, I'm sure you know that, but you were missed. Just want you to feel good about that.
Good.
So.
Appreciate that.
So we'll go right down through our subcommittee and see if we have any updates and reports to offer. Any updates, reports on site analysis, information gathering from Peter and Dick?
Go ahead, Dick.
Peter and I finally got in contact with each other this
Yes.
week. Yesterday. And we have committed to next Saturday to have a pretty good day in the field and be back here next week. I have done some work. I've got the cartographic maps now that show all of the lots, I believe, that we have in consideration. I do have some notes made on those. I don't know if Butch is coming tonight, but
Yeah, I think he probably is coming off the mountain. I haven't heard to the contrary, but you never know what he gets tied up with up there, I guess, so. So this will be, at this point, it's you and Peter are going to do that on next Saturday,
And maybe,
and maybe some others. Art, are you joining that group?
Saturday.
this is the first time he's heard about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be able to do that.
it'll
Possibly.
be early, Arthur.
Well, not too early.
I'm pretty sure I can do that. I'll have to double check, but
And what I think we'd like to do is tour the rest of the sites that we haven't toured yet, just from a detail standpoint. And I'm aiming for wrapping it up Saturday, get a feel for the sites and getting a feel for like sort of salient items on site, and maybe taking a stab, sort of commenting on initial layouts, and maybe Sunday, seeing I was on vacation for 2 weeks, Sundays take another stab at doing some layouts from a programmatic standpoint, and maybe next week having a quote-unquote draft report to be submitted,
Absolutely wonderful.
because I think time is of the essence.
Well, it is, and you probably noticed John brought up, and a lot of us agreed, that we want to really start looking at what we can be doing concurrently, and later on in the agenda, I've got a few questions about some of those things, and I hope the rest of you will have a lot more to add, and thank you for working, because you're right, we have to be working outside of just these, obviously, these hourly meetings, because we have some timetables approaching us, deadlines. Okay.
Dick,
Yep.
what are the maps that you're going to be using?
Cartographic.
Cartographic map.
Thank you.
What time do you envision starting, Dick?
I'd like to start around 6:30.
Well, you guys can start. I was going to suggest 9:30.
Yes.
9.
That's late.
It's almost lunch. 9:30 will be fine. I may head out on my own for a bit, so I'd like to get going sooner so I can.
If you want to take a look, is this appropriate to talk about this here? I've already seen the SHIB property in detail, walked around, and I've gotten dimensions from for it, and also the Garrity property, so I've got that pretty well wrapped up.
Yep.
It's going back and looking at the remaining sites. How many are there? 4 or 5?
yeah, it's a total of 7. Plus, you had already done a prelim on Shiv Hospitality, right?
Yes, so I got that, at least
got
the
those
analysis
two.
wrapped up, yes.
I don't know how much more we have to do on the existing police site. I mean, we've got, we had some prelims where they would, when they were trying to squeeze the 2 buildings in.
Correct, yeah.
So if you're going to put 1 in, it really depends on whether you think you can put it beside the existing so you don't have to do it in a couple phases.
Sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes you're surprised too, if you actually take a look at things. I like to take a look at the existing police station also, that site.
Yep.
Just walk around a little bit.
I do think we have a number of, I'm sorry, Ray, you were first.
Where do you think you'll be assembling? Because there's a possibility I could join you.
Yeah, I was going to recommend that just in case others want to join this, because I think this is a very interesting part of this, if it's possible, if you guys could just email the group when you finalize your time, if you haven't, unless you want to do that right now and pick a gathering spot.
Pick a location where we could meet.
Meet at McDonald's for coffee. And,
No.
oh, I would have already bought my coffee, but I won't mention where.
Bring your cup. Bring your cup. Meet at the PD site.
Police station,
Okay.
police site, okay?
9:30.
So what time?
9:30.
9:30?
9:30.
You'll already have seen all the
9:30.
sites twice by then, but that's okay. All right, so 9:30 at the PD site for a more detailed, intensive walkthrough for the remaining sites.
And it's also going to be, I'll bring a 100-foot tape, and if you have any other implement, laser, measure, whatever, bring that too, but at least we'll be able to mark off things.
Should Dick bring a backhoe, dig a few test pits while you guys are wandering around?
Already been there.
Okay.
Already been.
Tape if you want to use it.
Good for
You want a
outside
laser
outdoor.
tape?
Ray still has the floor,
I got one too.
and
but
then
it's good
Art.
for just inside.
I did one,
This kind of ties in with 1 and 2, but since we're talking about the site analysis, one of the things that can have a significant impact is the footprint of the structure that we're talking about on each one of these sites. And while we got very good coaching from the Select Board Chair, Val, at our last meeting a week ago, one of the things we actually wanted to clarify today from both of the chiefs was that the information that we've been looking at that shows the space design that we've been using for a standalone fire department, in fact, is based on a design that was also relying on a satellite station in town. And we wanted to hear that from Chief Clarkston again, just to make sure we were all on the same page, because last week it became clear that a number of us, including myself, were operating under the principle that the design that we had in front of us was for a standalone fire department that did not require a in-town satellite station. So I'm anxious to hear your comment on that. I tried to get it so you could do yes or no, but you might want to tag on to that.
The plans that we did present at the March meeting did include satellite stations. Mr. Bolton did come up to the fire station, and I showed him the cutouts with the apparatus that we do have and stuff that we need to put underneath a roof. We'd have to expand that plan was going to be a standalone, no other fire station.
So the standalone plan that we have currently is also assuming that there is a satellite. So we do not then have in our possession a standalone plan for the fire station that is all-encompassing, that covers all of your needs?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, basically, I just, working with the chief, just coming up with a sort of an outline of this expansion that includes a true standalone building, no annex.
Okay, so
Is that what we've been looking at, or is that what you have in hand?
We all have it.
We all have.
all have
Way
it.
back when I hand out sort of templates for all the different building types.
Okay.
But, just for purposes of the minutes, but I get this clear. We have 3 sets of conceptual drawings, one for a standalone fire department and a standalone police department proposed for the 334 Main Street that were then became the combined facility. That standalone facility at 334 Main Street that became part of the combined facility, did that still require the downtown satellite? Yes.
So the plan that, Mary, that was in your your consolidated package is not the standalone plan that encompasses
It does not,
everything
right.
with no
That's right.
substation. So just FYI.
Toward that end, is there a conceptual drawing that encompasses all of the needs?
I would say...
Yes.
I know you worked on a bit of a sketch there. Is that,
It's just basically just an outline of the building footprint, outside facer framing.
So not-
that accommodates all the requirements in one building.
So just a square foot footprint.
Yes.
This was what it would take. Okay.
And on top of that, too, just so we're all aware of it, too, also took, again, just an outside face of framing, outside face of line, that shows a one-story building that encompasses both facilities.
right, I know that, but in terms of terminology in my minutes, the only 3 real conceptual drawings we have that have actual office spaces, mechanical spaces, public spaces, toilets, et cetera, are the combined facility and the 2 freestanding buildings that would still have required the downtown satellite.
That's correct.
All right.
I'm assuming then that the major difference would be the number of bays,
That is correct.
because all the other facilities would appear to be
That is correct. Yeah.
adequate. So instead of 8 bays, you're going to need 10 bays?
Well,
Because this conceptual drawing has 8 bays.
When R9, when Peter and I spoke, I showed him the bays would have to go, I believe, 1 or 2 more to
I'd have to check, but I think it's 2.
finish.
Okay. So that would be
There'll be
10.
2 more bays, it'll be 10 bays instead of the 8 that's there.
You say bays, you're talking,
Just to park a vehicle.
It's a space for one piece of
bay is
apparatus.
two vehicles, right.
Well, no.
or one long vehicle, but by bay, you mean one door.
One bay is 2 vehicles. There's 4 bays on that, on this.
Okay, I called it 8 bays.
But it's 4. But I thought-
It would be 8 bays if it was doors front to back. I guess these aren't doors front to back.
Right. It's, no, it'd still be.
John?
Didn't the location enter into this? Because when they were talking about moving the fire station up to where the police station is now, with a satellite in town, that was in consideration of the insurance rates and so forth. In other words, if you had a satellite in town where it is now, that would make another circle down below, which would be within the required location for the people down in the southern section of the town to be within the required limits to have a decent tax rate. Wasn't that part of the...
That was part of it, but the main driving force is response time.
Right. But that's the location. Right, but the location had something to do with it. In other words, what you were figuring on is the response time from the present station here would be faster for the southern part of Plymouth than coming all the way from the station that was voted on, one of the stations that was voted on at last night. So you don't only have what I'm getting at is you building to consider, you also have the response time to consider. So if you
I think you're right on response time. I think we've already put to rest the idea. There is no place in Plymouth that it would not be able to have fire insurance. What their rates are, I don't know, but with the overlapping circles, and I think Art looked at this as well, every place is eligible for fire insurance coverage.
Right.
But the
there's
issue is
preferred.
response time.
Right, and there's also preferred rates.
Well, there's
You can
different
get a
rates.
rate, you can get fire insurance or flood insurance if you want to pay enough for it.
Right.
But it has to be within a certain distance to get that preferred rate.
And if you remember the map, we showed that the circles from Ashland and other areas overlapped those far corners of Plymouth. So
And
what
what-
their rates would be, I don't think is we can determine, but at least no one would be left out without the ability to have insurance. But I think response time is for us, I think, a critical consideration still, because that's
And they considered that response time with a satellite
correct.
being
Yeah.
downtown. So I'm just saying that don't just look at the building size, look at the response time.
Yep. Okay. So I think we're all set then on our plans for Saturday. And we're ready to, and that really still covers, I assume, program layout, because that will come after.
Actually, just one sort of administrative.
Yep.
Chief, are you available lunchtime, either tomorrow or Friday, 12:30, something like that? To go over the programmatic requirements of a used existing fire station site? Some options there.
Just give me a call, give me about half hour.
Okay, all right.
With that question, I'm just going to jump down to one of the items with the little apples that I put down, and the third apple, and attached to your agenda, because we've talked about this, so I found both the 1997 report and as well as the 2005 report, and I circled the page, or I printed the page and circled the comments from those two reports with regards to the current fire station site. We had some discussion about that, and I just wanted to clarify, these were the comments. Both reports basically confirming that the current site is the ideal site for a fire station. And I put it in not knowing what our final conclusions are going to be, but given the fact that every report has said that, it follows in nicely with what you're saying. I think the community deserves for us to do everything we can to see if we're going to be able to locate our fire station or a fire station there, however it plays out, whether it's going to be an annex or whatever we want to call it, whether it's a call annex, a staffed annex. But I think that there's too much history behind telling us, and we've heard the chief tell us the same thing this year, that and the call department people as well, that is a site that we can't ignore. And now that we have expanded our conversation to include some of the abutting properties, all this has to play out, of course, but at least we're going to give it our absolute full consideration. So since we had talked about that, I found both those pages. I thought I'd share those for the record. Okay. Any more conversation on our process for moving forward on site acquisition costs? Has the select board had an opportunity to discuss that further?
Yeah, the contact, we haven't had a meeting since the last, but it's interesting that some of the some of the people that had been contacted earlier that had a price and now would like to rethink the price. So
Want to drop it, right?
yeah. So and then there's some have one partner is agree to the price, another one thinks they should get more. So it's going to take a little time.
Take a while.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's going to take a little time.
Yep.
And,
Go ahead, sorry.
so, but most everybody's been contacted, and so there's a couple left, I think, here.
I don't know, I'm speaking now from another world that I've lived in, which has very strict requirements on what you can and can't do in terms of purchasing of properties. And at some point, we're going to have to get ourselves off the dime, you know, and finally decide, you know what, folks, if you're not willing to consider X, then we have to move on. We just can't go any further. So I don't know if the select board wants to consider coming up with some appraised value, you know, the average of multiple appraisals with a 10% over or under, and that's our max, and that's all that's going to happen. And if people want to live with that, then keep talking, and if you don't, we have to say we need to move on, you know, just as a thought, you know, for your further discussion, because I can imagine people, and you've said they're already dancing around numbers. Some may go lower, some may go higher, but at some point we have to say, you know what, if you're not within this range, we need to know that, because we're going to have to move on.
Right.
You know, so just as a thought for your future discussion, but I don't.
But as of now, too-
Maybe the better way to approach it would be exactly the way you discussed that the university system approaches it, is if somebody's willing wants to sell their property, and we decide that that's a fitting site, then we have it assessed, and we pay up to 10% of the assessed
Right,
value.
and that's what I'm suggesting, that,
And that's in, if they want into the program, that's their entrance. But I'm very concerned that I consider that we're really, you know, we're way behind the 8 ball here. We should have a site ready to go now, and we don't. And that's probably as much my fault as anybody's. But I think we need to get going, and I don't think we can start haggling over how much people want to, you know.
yeah, ultimately, of course, it's a select board decision, but I just, as a suggestion to move
Right.
us forward, so we can start to say, you're either going to at least agree to this principle, or you're not. And if you're not, and whatever the appraisals are, we use good objective appraisals, use multiples, take the average, et cetera. But however you need to move forward, just as a thought that might help us move more quickly in a direction. So I think we're all. John, do you have something else to add?
The only question I have is, when were they assessed last? If they were assessed last at 2005, you're going to have an inflated assessment value.
Well, it would be a current appraisal, at least in the world I live in. You, right now, when the moment strikes, you get multiple appraisals,
I
and it's at
understand that,
today's
but-
standard.
But you keep saying assessed.
Yeah, it really is appraisal, not assessment, because assessment's a tax, you're right, that's a wrong term. We're really talking a current appraisal, and you have multiple current appraisals based on
Yeah.
recent sales, yada, 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 and then you move forward.
But you don't have too many sales of fire departments.
Yeah, we're talking about
Talking about sites.
abutting buildings, not the fire department, which you're right. I hope we don't have too many sales of fire departments. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's one thing I have here, and I've had it in my folder since 2004, and it's a guideline for public safety facilities, and it's out of Ontario, Canada, but it's from the Office of the Fire Marshal up there, and they talk about site selection, and I just want to read something out of here, because we keep talking about being in the center of the town, and this sort of takes a different view of that. And what it says is fire stations should be located where they can serve the majority of the protection area they're assigned rather than for a specific hazard. For example, it may seem wise to place the fire station across from a nursing home. However, if the majority of the responses are in the residential or commercial areas at the other side of the coverage area, the station should be situated closer to that area, but still have the ability to arrive at the nursing home in the desired time, which is the response time Casino's talking about. Many volunteer stations are located in or very close to the geographic center of the populated area of the community. This may increase response time, when volunteers have to come through traffic to get to the station and then respond back through traffic to the emergency. Response times could be reduced by locating stations closer to the edge of the urban center. Firefighter response procedures could be altered to have some volunteers respond to the station for equipment and others to go directly to the scene. And it may be advisable to have stations located a short distance up a side street rather than on a main street where the heaviest traffic exists and allows them at least to get out on the road and get going. But that's just another take on it. And Highland Street is definitely in the center of town, and that's the way it was done in the day. And but we do need to consider the entire response area. And we talked about that being on, major thoroughfares that gives you access to the greater areas of town in the shortest amount of time. So we need to think about that, too.
Yeah, I actually think that's pretty congruent with thought processes thus far. But we do have a lot of unique variables with the way our call department functions, et cetera. But certainly, if that's something that we don't, do we not have that? Do we have that document?
No, I don't think we do, but I can make a copy of it.
If you'd like, we can get that around to everybody.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Any utility updates?
No, nothing on that item 4 on your agenda.
I'm presuming we don't have a lot of other budgetary hard costs
No.
at this juncture. And timelines are what they were last time we talked about it, as is Article 7, except that now we do have a sample, thank you, Mary, and whoever provided to you, of last year's draft warrant articles. And
Paul
we
sent that.
still do not have the, I don't believe the new standards have been released yet, but. So,
Quick question on
Yeah.
timelines and schedules. Do we want to put a date? I always like dates because it gives a goal.
like deadlines?
Yes. At least it spurs me on.
Last Tuesday, how's that?
We're not going to make that.
Flippant.
But that
Flip it, you're right.
that next task of doing site layouts, coming up with sort of maybe recommendations on a site or sites, and also get CCI working on costs. Is there a date that we're shooting for? I'm shooting for at least a draft report next Wednesday. Beyond that, do we have a goal of 2 weeks after that with the cost from CCI and start fine tuning some of the?
Well, I think that
Selections.
ties into the next series of items, which what are the concurrent activities that we need to have happening now to move us forward? And I'm always excited to put deadlines on things, realistic ones, but I think we need those to drive us forward at this point. John, something to suggest?
Do we have, so that we can get the results of the bore test and also the diggings up to where the police station is now? I know the engineers, when they were doing the work to come up with whatever they needed to have for financially, they actually went up and did bore tests and so forth. Do we have that availability to have that?
Well, it ties quite well into my very first little apple there, John, which are, can we get refined hard costs for site development at the current PD site for both building options and/or any other new options? And I think that's a critical element. I hear multiple site development costs that have been tossed around from previous analysis. Now we have a third level of analysis that we're going to look at, which will happen this week, where we start talking about where could we put a standalone building X or a standalone building Y. And all of those will need some level of new hard costs in terms of site development. So that is, to me, one of our critical concurrent things that we have to be driving forward. So I throw that up for our discussion, and out for our discussion, not up, I apologize, for us to try to nail down who's going to do what and what do we need, and who, if we need to contract with someone or get some pro bono work from someone, who is it, who's going to organize it, who's going to arrange it, what's our deadline, and see if we can't nail down some of these specifics. What's that?
And why is everyone looking at Peter?
Well, I think we look at a lot of people and people who aren't here in terms of some of this might require actually contracting with someone to do this.
Yeah, if we can get someone to work pro bono, that's great. But there's a lot of work effort involved on looking at a site or sites and coming up with a new sort of plan from a design professional and coming up with costs. I might suggest is for us, there might be an apparent winner on one of the sites that just work out really well, but maybe not. There might be like 2 or 3 options. At that point, maybe getting a design professional involved to go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think we can say, could you go do these 7 sites? You know,
It's pro bono, that's great.
That's too,
Yeah,
probably too much right now.
But 7 sites,
but-
and I'm not sure what was spent in the past. I know there are differing costs with different design professionals, but it'd be sort of a shame to turn them loose on 7 sites at X amount per site, when there's really going to be just a winner, probably.
We've done that before. We shouldn't do that again.
Yeah, it seems to be.
So what you're suggesting is next week we'll have a site report and we ought to have some hard conversation about at least prioritizing those and starting
We'll also
in
have
an
layout
order.
reports though, too, right?
Say that again?
We'll have the site report and the layout report.
That's what I mean.
Part and parcel,
Right.
same thing.
Because it seems to me that some of those might just boot themselves right out.
Well, I think
When you couple those two aspects.
Coupled
so-
with nailing people down to some sort of a formula on price acceptance for abutting properties, those 2 variables together, I think, are going to help us now. We've done our due diligence, but I think that's going to glean this down to a more manageable number, or at least give us a rank ordering based on, you know, we can't go to the community and say it's going to cost this. You know, that's just, we know that's not going to work, and that's got to be one of our choices here once we get a sense for the cost of some of these sites.
Well, that's why if we have a formula, an assessment,
Right.
a appraisal formula that everybody has agreed to and on board with, then at least we know nobody's holding anybody else up, you
Right.
know, that we're moving forward and everything's okay.
Because one thing right off the bat, the existing fire station, with all the different options for all the properties around it, there's so many variables there, it's daunting.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't even start probably do a layout there just for a test for the programmatic space until we know at least some initial ideas of costs, because I'm sure some of those are going to drop off.
Plus, it doesn't look like, I mean, based on, I don't think you can fit the number of bays on that plot, even if you went 3 stories.
Not the existing.
Existing plot, it doesn't look like there's any way you can do it. I mean, you can barely put the...
We come close.
The 8-boat bays.
That's something I want to work with the chief about a little bit.
Well, I look
And-
forward to hearing your analysis of that.
And depending on the sites, and that's something it'd be nice to maybe work with the assessed values, plus or minus 10% or whatever, too, so at least it gives an order of magnitude of which sites we might consider for planning purposes. And the other thing for next week, I'm hoping to have, put that caveat in there, I'm hoping, layouts and analysis for all the sites, but the CCI will have to get involved too, and I'm thinking a week or 2 weeks beyond that, he'll have some costs. Might be square foot, or might be takeoffs for each of the sites, alternatives. Then we can go ahead and make a judgment which one to pursue.
Okay.
Or not.
So do we need to, what needs to happen right now? Is anything in terms of connecting with CCI and so that they can have some anticipation of what we need when you say we need them? And is there any role that the town governance folks need to play in that process or decision-making matrix?
Behind the scenes, Jeff's been calling me about
Okay.
bugging me.
Okay,
You know,
so they're
So when we
ready.
have at least a basic layout
Okay.
and the past plans to give him, he'll be all set.
So am I correct in assuming that it probably would be premature for us to try to put hard and fast deadlines until next meeting when we have a little more, maybe 2 meetings even?
I'm almost thinking to give myself a deadline.
Okay,
Within 3 weeks, have CCI cost information and at least layouts for all the different sites
okay.
in preparation for our analysis.
For the more thoughtful financial analysis.
CCI costs.
So then what has to happen to make that happen, Peter? I know we can say to you, okay, that's your deadline, Peter. Are you able to coordinate this with CCI? Do you
Yes.
need, okay, so
Yes.
that doesn't require anyone in town governance involvement at this point?
No.
Are they working on a pro bono basis then?
They're strictly
They
working
are?
on pro
Okay.
bono.
All right, and the town is aware of that and that it's acceptable?
I've talked to Paul already about that.
Okay.
And he's fine.
Okay.
And there might be some further input too in site costs, Dick, from you, or we can work that out.
Okay. Excellent.
Tim,
Yes, Mary?
just to get back to John's request, because it isn't the first time that he's made it. There, if I'm not mistaken, what you're asking is, could we look at the costs that were already developed for the last plan at the PD? Is that right? You'd like to look at the engineering reports that are already in hand?
Yeah, In other
So
words,
could we-
they did a lot of work, and they came up with hard cost
Okay,
amount.
Val?
But it wasn't just test pits that were dug.
There were borings.
The way
and,
that I
they know where the
understand it,
ledge
they
is.
went one step further with borings, and that's what the report I would like to see.
Right, that'll,
And that's,
right.
Val, you want to clarify?
That also did, I mean, he's exactly right, I was about to say the same thing, and what we got was kind of the evolution as the thing evolved from two separate facilities to a combined facility. The cost of the site preparation, went from up here to up here, but it
Is the report that made that clear to the folks who were working on that particular project something that those of us who were not involved in that project could see? Because that's what I'm hearing John saying, is he'd like us to look at that.
I think so. I don't see
Okay,
why
so we
not.
could request that from Paul, maybe?
They were all presented,
But-
right?
What I'm getting at is you got a hill here.
Yeah, no,
The further you go back into that hill, the more expensive it's going to be.
Right.
And I believe that they test board so that.
That's exactly right. And what we've got is the amount of material that they had to remove first for the two facilities, then moving the two facilities forward, and then combining the two facilities into one.
Right.
The amount of material, and it was all granite, that had to be removed, got less at each phase of that.
As you kept going closer to the road. But there again, and this leads into a question I want to ask the chief to be real sure about, is that I know, like at the Catholic site, for a better word, they kept nibbling away at it, and finally the chiefs, and nothing against them, the chiefs finally said, okay, this is what we can get along with. And they did exactly the same thing on the site that is where the police station is now. They kept saying, well, we'll have, the two buildings, and then we'll have the one building, then we'll push it close to the, I don't want to have it so that when we get all said and done, we're going to be in the same position as we were last time, and somebody finally had the thought of that building really wasn't acceptable even before we built it, at the time we built it. And I'd like to have the chiefs really come out and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, and then we can go from there, instead of starting at the final stage of after everybody nibbled away and tried to fit. They tried to fit the building on the site. I don't want that. I want to have it.
John,
the site.
we've already asked that question
Hey,
directly.
could I please?
and
Could
they've
I
answered
please?
it.
Could
Yeah,
I please?
go ahead, but they've answered this question.
I know that, but I also have been on this committee a wee bit longer than you have, and I've heard this time and time and time again. So I would like to have, I would like it in writing, but
Okay, that's a new request.
but the thing is, I don't want you guys up against the wall saying, this is what we can get along with. I want to make real sure that's what you want. And maybe I'm out of line, but I just don't want to have, I want you guys satisfied and not somebody, not the building fit into the land. I want the land to fit into the building.
Well, I think the walkthrough will help that, and I know, Dick, you've already espoused that there may be some other approaches to designing the building on that site, so I look forward to...
Absolutely.
So as you walk through, we don't have to talk about that tonight, but I would look forward to hearing as you guys walk through and do your measurements and come back with your assessment of what other options and designs may work, and then, of course, making sure that all those designs fit the needs and programmatic requirements of the chiefs and the programs. I was handed, Ray reminded me of this lovely Gantt chart that Peter designed for us back in the day. Let's see, when was this? July 5th. And let's see, I'm looking at first day of September, and we are already supposed to be in public review and input on our decision. So we have slid backwards a bit, and but we're making progress, and I don't know if you need to reevaluate this at some point, but thank you for doing it initially, and it reminds us of your request that we need deadlines, because time is waning quickly, so thank you.
Anything on any of my little three apples that people, I think we've talked about all of them in one way or another at this juncture. And so Val, I'm sorry, is that something that we can look to you to give us copies of, or is it such massive amounts of material that we need a set to review separately, or in terms of all those engineering studies?
I don't think it's that much. Actually, this is a copy of the actual site cost development.
Okay.
Up there. It's all on one sheet. Exactly what that price is included.
The different variables, or was that just
Yeah,
for the?
well,
okay.
that's for everything from the pipe that they would lay in. This is strictly the site work, the pipe, the drainage, clearing the ledge, all that stuff. So strictly site work. It's all on one sheet. So.
Okay. Do we have that yet or no?
No.
Okay.
No. This is just something I pulled out of an old packet that
Okay.
I read.
So then that
stuff's available.
That could be copied for us then for our ability to look at next week.
Shall I ask Paul for that and attach it to the minutes for this week's meeting?
Your preference, is that the best approach, or is that?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's is that a town document?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but he can email it like we did the agenda probably, and
Yeah, that'd be
I
wonderful.
can attach it for everybody.
If he has it electronically, if he.
I think he does.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
But can I just want to go, I'm confused again now, this bringing up whether or not the chiefs have said what they want. It's my understanding that the conceptual drawings and the space needs that we were provided by both departments back in May adequately cover the present and future needs of the two departments, and so I included them in a summary packet of data for all of us based on that understanding. Did I interpret that correctly, that those space needs and those drawings are acceptable to the departments for their present and future needs? And would each of you respond?
The apparatus, floor space, if it's standalone, no other fire station.
Okay. And for you, Chief Temporary, those are,
I thought I had it, but I can't.
and the community's needs. Okay.
That one we added on the one day.
Thank you.
Will you reflect both those comments in the minutes?
I will.
In my mind, I'll put it
Yes, I
in
will.
writing.
Yeah.
So with the exception of the additional bay space
For apparatus.
We create a
or
standalone
apparatus
floor
for
space.
some sort of off-site substation somewhere, or addition to, okay.
Are there other concurrent things that could be happening right now to move us forward that we should talk about tonight?
He needs potentially 2 more.
Anybody think of anything?
Butch or Val, could I ask, is there anything we can do to assist you in coming up with a property appraisal valuation formula that we would ask people to agree to, if that's even I guess we're presuming that you even want to do that. So I guess, is there anything we can do to assist you in this discussion? Should it be an open agenda item Monday? We're not talking actual costs of anything. We're talking more of an approach. Would you like our input, or are you comfortable moving forward on your own on that?
I think we'd be comfortable moving on our own on that.
Okay.
I think we know what we want.
Okay, super. Yeah, no, I don't want to muddy the waters any more than we need to, and too many cooks can spoil the soup. I just think you've heard that we need to have some kind of an ability to make these decisions, and the sooner we can move forward, the better. Okay, thank you. So, anything else for the discussion of concurrent functions? Or shall we, if not, I'll move on to if we have any future agenda items. We've talked about a number tonight, of course, based on some of the plans and the work that are ongoing. Other items in general. I'm happy that we're breaking up our tasks and moving forward on these, and please, let's make a commitment to each other that if anybody needs anything, everybody's got phone numbers, we've got our email distribution lists. They've been pretty quiet outside of these meetings, except for some individual connecting, but if anybody starts to feel like they need some input or advice or hear consensus building, please, let's seek it. Is that reasonable?
And I can help with reports if you get into a touch on those next week.
I counted on that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe as I get some, or we get some initial layouts done for the different sites too, I'll send out some PDFs to everyone just for comments, and I'd love to get comments.
Yeah, and I think that everybody please make a
Commitment that if we get that request, that we all try to respond ASAP so that Peter can make refinements or make other considerations, or whomever is working on any element of this project, to get that input, so it isn't like the first time everybody sees something or thinks about it is when we get together here. It'd be a lot nicer to process some thought that's already occurred and some suggestions back and forth. Peter might then be able to come and say, well, I've heard from 3 of you feel this and 4 of you feel that, and let's talk about it. And so that's a more focused discussion. So,
Okay.
do we have any public comment tonight from our huge audience? Which I really do appreciate everybody being here and your constant due diligence on this. Okay, Ray has something.
Just sitting here looking at the Gantt chart, my suggestion would be that future agendas actually have the Gantt chart or subsequent modifications to it actually attached to the agenda. I think it's a great project management tool.
It's a wonderful tool, and I know we were excited about it initially. I don't want to overburden you with everything else you're doing. I don't know if you have a chance to try to take a look at that and tweak it to our current timelines, or if that's asking too much.
I know where you are right now, and they're all linked.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of changing a date.
Yep.
And that date for town presentation doesn't change, but I
Do you
can
want me
update
to
that.
email it with the minutes every week?
I
As
think
it
that's a
changes?
great idea.
Would that be a good
yeah.
way, that way?
I think we need that kind of little hammer hanging over our heads.
Send it to me and I'll attach it to the minutes and then,
As a PDF.
please.
Good.
Okay. That's a great suggestion. Thanks, Ray.
If there's nothing else to come before us tonight, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, seconded, all in favor?
Aye, aye.
It is official. Thank you all.
I'm at Roadrunner. I think
We'll be there.
Oh, a little bit earlier.
you have my email thing when I was on the board.